Hey, Shabbat Shalom, Israel. I hope you're enjoying your rest. And tonight, for many of us, it kicks off Yom Teruah. And I wanted to throw together a quick video explaining why tonight starts Yom Teruah. Because at the beginning of the year, like many years, there's always a little bit of conflict about when the year starts. So I thought this may be helpful to maybe see in a linear graph the month 1 and 2 together in connection with the solar sign. But before we look at the graph, I want to read a very key passage to help us understand how to figure out the start of the year. And it's found in Exodus chapter 13, verses 1 through 10. And I'm going to just spend some time and read this kind of slow. You may want to study this yourself, and you're going to get a lot more insight into when we start the Hebrew year. I already did a short video on the role of the sun or the solar sign in determining the Hebrew year. You may want to check out that video, but we're going to look at it, this whole entire context of chapter 13, not just verse 10, and see if we can gain some insight. So starting in verse 1, And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Sanctify unto me all the firstborn. Whatsoever opens the womb among the children of Israel, both a man and a beast, is mine. And Moshe said to the people, Remember this day, in which you came out of Mitzrayim, or Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For by strength of hand Yahuwah brought you out from this place. There shall be no leavened bread be eaten. This day came ye out in the month of Abib. I want to stop right there because we want to find out what day he's talking about. Now, there's two times when Israel technically came out of Egypt, and the first day mentioned in the scriptures is in the book of Numbers, chapter 33, verse 3. It says, And they departed from Ramses in the first month on the 15th day of the first month. On the morrow after the Passover, the children of Israel went out with a high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians. So the day that he's talking about here in Exodus chapter 13 is the 15th day of the first month. This gives context to what we're talking about. He's saying, Remember this day that you came out in the month of Abib. And it shall be when Yahuwah shall bring thee into the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and Amorites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he swore unto the fathers to give thee, a land flowing with milk and honey, that thou shalt keep this service in this month. He's referring to this unleavened bread, starting with the 15th. That's the key piece here. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, and in the 7th day shall be a festival to Yahuwah. Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and there shall be no leavened bread be seen with thee. Neither shall there be leaven seen within all thy quarters. And thou shalt show thy son in that day, saying, This is done because of that which Yahuwah did unto me when I came forth out of Egypt. And it shall be a sign upon thy hand and a memorial between thy eyes, that Yahuwah's laws may be in thy mouth. For with a strong hand thou Yahuwah brought thee out of Egypt. And thou shalt therefore keep this ordinance in its season from year to year. And that's the key piece right there, that we are to keep unleavened bread in its season from year to year. And that's where that solar sign ties in. But specifically, he gave them this commandment on the 15th. He reminded them, remember this day, the 15th, because it's huge for syncing the whole entire calendar. So, long story short, I wanted to show you this year, months 1 and 2, just in a linear, timeline fashion here for those who you are left brain and may think better this way. So, what happened this year? The equinox, that solar sign, landed on the 13th day of the first month. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, well, if you wait for the solar sign, then the next new moon would be the start of the month for you. However, when we read Exodus 13, 1 through 10, the key mark that really needs to be in its season, that the scripture says, remember this day, is the 15th day. This is the one that has to be kept in the season. And as long as that solar sign lands anytime before or on the 15th, you're going to always have the festival of unleavened bread in the proper season, that of spring. This can mean that the beginning of the year, like the new moon, can actually be in the season of winter. Throws a lot of people off. And when you start studying history, like for example the birth of Messiah in 3 BCE, you'll realize if you go back and look at the astronomy programs that the equinox actually happened in 3 BC on the 6th day of that first month, to have a birth on Yom Teruah on September 11, 3 BCE for Messiah. Also the death, burial, and resurrection of Messiah in that year, in the first month, the equinox actually also landed on the 13th day of the first month. So what I'm trying to say is this is really critical to not only understand, time, but actually understand history and the events in the scripture. So this is important. But I wanted to point out some comparison and contrast a little bit about time frame here. Notice that from the solar sign to the new moon that started the first month, there's 12 days there from one point to the next. There's 12 days. But when we compare to month 2, there is 17 days. So my question is, which one is closer to that solar sign, for one, even though it doesn't actually make too much difference, because if you're paying attention to Exodus 13, 1 through 10, the new moon is not the thing that needs to sync the year. It's actually the festival of unleavened bread, specifically the 15th. And when we look at the solar sign in connection with the 15th, we see there's only 2 days in month 1 difference. Where we compare with month 2 going to the 15th, there are 31 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. So there are 31 days from the solar sign to that 15th day, if that was the first month. So, when we compare and contrast, not only is the solar sign closer to the new moon, it's also closer to that first feast of unleavened bread compared to 31 days in month 2. And of course, this year in 2019, the barley was ready, the crops were ready in month 1. Now, another thing people want to look at is at the end of the year, with the 7th and 8th month. And I want to bring this up too, because also in the book of Exodus, chapter 34, let me get there real quick, 34 verse 22, it also says this, that thou shalt observe the festival of weeks of the first fruit of the wheat harvest, and the feast of ingathering at the year's end. Or in some translations, like the Septuagint, it says in the middle of the year. So we should always have the festival of Sukkot close to that, again, that solar sign, the fall equinox. And again, when we compare and contrast, because this year in the 7th month, the solar sign will happen on the 23rd day of the month. Now, for those who know, Sukkot starts on the 15th through the 21st, and we have Shmini Atzeret. So it's really close. It's only 8 days from the beginning of the festival, that solar sign. But when we look at the other side, if we look at the solar sign going to the 8th month to the start of the 15th, which is Sukkot, there are 21 days. It's a 21-day difference. So for you guys looking on, I'll just count this out for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 21-day difference. So no matter how you cut this, you're always going to have the Sukkot around the solar sign, and even this year, and even though this is still closer, this really does not sync the year. We need to go back to Exodus, and the thing that needs to be in its season from year to year is that festival of unleavened bread, specifically the 15th day. If this solar sign would have been one day over in the 16th, we would then have to intercalculate a 13th month. But this year, we'll be celebrating tonight when the sun sets, Yom Teruah, the first day of the 7th month. Shalom.